First of all, Luke, let's talk about some good news because Jofra Archer signing a new contract, and we were thinking yesterday, Archer, Whittingham, Garton, all of a sudden the future's looking really rosy on the fast bowling front.
It is. It's something we've found hard for a long time, especially down in Sussex. Normally all the northern clubs that find all the fast bowlers. So I think that's been one of the great things this year to come out of the season, is the fact that we're suddenly producing all these fast bowlers. And you know, I watched Stewie in pre-season, and I think just shows what game time can do, because you know, watching him bowl in pre-season, you never thought he'd have been as far down the line as he is now, which is great exciting for us. And see Jofra on TV, pressured game again, step up with a new ball and go and get five for was so impressive. To get him locked down now was great for us.
And I guess it's great to get these lads developed. How important has John Lewis been in their development as well, Luke?
Yeah, of course he's been huge. I mean, it's like anything with young players to come in. Ideally, they come into a winning side. So tough for those guys to have to come into a side that hasn't performed as well as we'd like to. But I think that shows, one, the environment that's been created to obviously have them come in and feel comfortable enough to go and perform, which is great. Johnny Louis, obviously, he's worked really hard. You know, he's identifying along with Mark and as to have a look at these young guys. But then they need backing and the feeling like they're safe to fail, and that's what the environment we're trying to produce. And luckily, you know, those guys have come in and done really well.
We talk about the batting in the moment, which perhaps hasn't been quite successful this year, but we're sort of 2/3 of the way through the season, 7 championship games to go. What's the plan for those next 7 games, Luke?
Well, to win 7 games. Look, it's been tough. I mean, we knew coming into this division, you know, we were always going to be a bit of a threat to other teams as well, and we've played on a lot of flat wickets. I mean, we can't get away from that. We've not, obviously we're undefeated, but by sort of day 2 on games, you're already looking like a draw. So that's been tough. But obviously with the new toss, etc., that happens. But I think we're in a great position to actually really go and push hard for this last 7 games and see where you end up. But I think from this point of view, we'd like to have won a few more games, but it's been tough on those wickets.
You're experimenting today, for example, in the game against Kent. Is the plan over the next 7 games to experiment again with some of those young players?
I think championship-wise, we're pretty settled with what we're trying to do. We've obviously, I suppose, experimented already in the start of the season with some of these young guys playing, and people like Jofra, we want to get them to play. Garts, we want to play more, but his legs and his body, obviously as a young bowler, has got to take time to get used to how hard county cricket is. But in terms of batting wise, obviously we don't have Ross Taylor around, so there's always another spot. So there's opportunities always going to be there, but in terms of playing all the youngsters like we have done today, we won't be doing that.
Let's talk about Ross Taylor. You said before the huge impact he made. He's gone back now. Would you have liked to have been some more planning around who might replace Ross when he'd gone back?
I think in an ideal world, if you've got an unlimited budget, then you can bring in who you want, can't you? But we knew we were never going to have that. Obviously getting Ross was going to be a huge coup for the club, and it showed why. He was absolutely outstanding for us. I think we had an impact on him as well. He's gone away to Zimbabwe and he's gone and got 170 not out. Look, it was a great relationship. It worked perfectly for both of us. I think, you know, if we could have more overseas like him going forward, then we'll be very successful at the club. It's obviously been tough with the whole Mustafiza situation. It obviously affected us going forward. We saw what he could do at Essex that night, so we've had a bit more of that, then things might have been slightly different. And it's also the knock-on effect of getting people in and out and the flights and etc., the money you have to outlay. So it does make it difficult to replace for the back end.
So we've talked about the championship. Let's talk about white ball cricket, because I guess it's been disappointing, Luke.
It has. I think I was thinking back. You know, obviously spent many a night thinking back on you know, some of the games that have come close and we've just missed out. And you know, I think you could easily look at that Hampshire game in the 2020 game when a wide ball could have gone either way, and suddenly you win that. I think we'd have won the other night with Dr. Lewis, and then you're in a quarter final and things look very different. Look, even with those games, we still haven't played quite the games played the way we want to, especially with the bat. I think, you know, it's been tough. I haven't scored as many runs as I normally like to. And the same with the senior guys. I think when you do play youngsters and you're brave enough to do that, you need your senior players to really stand up, otherwise it makes things very tough. And unfortunately, with some of the senior guys, we've missed out at the same times in games, which has really cost us. Whereas if one of us had come off at, you know, even at Somerset, you win that game comfortably. And we can look back at a lot of games and really rue those missed chances. I don't think it's been a disaster in terms of, you know, we've been flogged every game. But the tables don't lie and you miss out, which is disappointing. But I think I always look back to, we've given ourselves massive chances the way we've bowled in the games. But batting's been an issue for us for a while now. I think there's no point sort of papering over the cracks. It's been an issue for, you know, 3, 4, 5 years now. You know, myself, as I said, I've stood up in in other years, which has helped us get to some of these bigger games, and Nashi and Joycey as well. So it's something we've got to address. There's no sort of getting around that, and we've got some tough decisions to make in terms of going forward with the batting. But I still look at a lot of the games that we had, and some of the performance we've had as well from the youngsters, and the youngsters have done really well, and they're almost ahead of schedule in terms of our planning. We've obviously got when we've come in as captain and a new coach, we've got a 3-year plan to really sort of start again, and ideally we'd have had a few more wins under our belt, but in terms of what we're seeing, in terms of the way the guys are coming through, it's certainly not doom and gloom.
Just talking about the batting coach, because Murray Goodwin was here in the early part of the season. There was a few eyebrows raised when he went back quite as early as he did. Would you have preferred it if Murray could perhaps have stayed longer? Would that have been beneficial, particularly with players maybe out of form with the bat?
I think any time, obviously, having a full-time batting coach is ideal, but I mean it comes down to availability and also down to finances as well, doesn't it? So, look, I think for most of it, all those fundamental things are put in place. We've never really had a batting coach there before. We've been finding people like myself. You just miss out. I know, and Joycey and Nashi, we're old enough and we've played enough cricket now to know what little things we're making mistakes. So for me, missing out on games, I certainly won't go back to blaming it on not having a batting coach. But it's something we are looking into the future, obviously. But again, finances always come into play.
Let's go back to Mustafa's era as well. How disruptive was that? Look, I know the club were very patient with Mustafa. With hindsight, would you wish perhaps the club had thought, well, actually, he's not going to come, we should have gone in another direction, maybe?
I think in hindsight, a bit more probably honesty would have been nice from the Bangladesh board of exactly where we were at. It's hard when a young man comes over and he's suddenly got an injury that we have no idea about. That makes it very tough. We're told they're sending a fully fit player. And with those few games to go, as we said, we saw what he could do. You suddenly get into a quarter-final and a finals day with him in your ranks, and you've got a very, very fine chance. Looking back now, obviously, if I'd only got a bit of a tear in his arm, then of course we'd have never gone down that route, and we'd have moved on very quickly, which would have helped us enormously. It'd have been cheaper not flying people in and out, etc., and the stress of that. And I'm a big fan of cohesion in sport and in your teams, and obviously we couldn't do that. The guys who came in did a great job, so can't complain there. But by the end of it, obviously we're playing with no overseas, and that makes it tough. But I think from our point of view, we picked a superstar early on. We got him at a good price. That we have to look to do things like that as a club, but unfortunately it just didn't work out.
I spoke to Mark Davies after the game at Somerset on Saturday, and Mark was saying, looking forward, it'll be maybe about recruitment of players for white ball cricket. Does that mean that during the winter months you'll be looking really hard about how you're going to structure things for next season?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, the first thing when I took over the job and Mark did, we knew that from a club's point of view, we were going to have to start again. Going back to that papering over the cracks, we've been trying to stay up in the first division for a long time. So that's the way we've almost signed, whereas we knew taking over, the directive was always to play our youngsters, get them coming through. And as I said, we're actually probably a bit ahead of a schedule on some of those guys being better now than we probably expect them to be. But we need to add some quality. I think it's easy to see that we do need to strengthen our batting, especially in that middle order in white ball cricket. That's really going to help us push, because if we are keeping sides to decent totals like we've done all year, really, we've got to knock those scores off. I'll go back to saying we still should have, with the players we've got, knocked some of those scores off, but it wasn't to be. But in terms of planning, I think, that's something we definitely need to look at.
In terms of yourself, Luke, how tough has it been? I noticed the other day on Twitter you put a thing up, your mum had sent you a message through. Has it been quite tough on you personally?
Yeah, it's been tough because I hate losing. I've loved being captain. I've never once thought I wish I wasn't doing it. There's lots of things, things went really well even at Somerset in the field that made me happy as captain. I've walked off at 230. A young bowler we've picked, we've seen come through, who's gone and got fifer. We're seeing people performing. And I look around in the field, I've seen big improvements in the field, and we should get it day in, day out, that score. It wasn't to be, I've missed out myself, and unfortunately, my little run of form came at a bad time for us, along with Nash and Joycey, that makes you lose those games, and then you walk away and you blame yourself, obviously, and it makes it tough. But I think it more than anything, as hard as it's been, I know what we're building. I know the foundations, as I'll go back to saying, the environment that we've created after what's been a tough winter with tragedy and and etc. And we know we're going to have some tough days trying to build, but I think from what I've seen with the youngsters, what I know in terms of the bits and bobs we can bring in for next season, if we can keep this environment going along with some more quality and these youngsters keep improving, then I'm really excited about the future.
Which is terrific, and we've seen some of those youngsters come through. There seem to be others who are coming through in the seconds as well, Luke.
There is. I think that's the great thing. Look, as a club, we know we're going to have to make use of our academy. There's no two ways of looking at it, and I feel the frustration of the fans at times. If no one hurts more than me. I've been here so long now. It hurts. You walk away, but it's easy to look at the short term and be frustrated. We're asking people all the time to look at the broader picture and give us time. And I know with time we'll turn it round. And as I said, we've by no means played anywhere near our cricket we can play this year, and we could have easily sneaked into a 2020 quarter-final. And sometimes when you do miss out, it makes you change even quicker. And I think with those changes, I think next year is something to be excited about.
And around social media and message boards, some people have been critical. What would your message be to the Sussex supporters, Luke?
I think just to trust us. I think when I joined this club, we just made a turn. Obviously, they'd won a championship. Things were always on the up, and it's easy to go back to those days. We've been very lucky as a player and as a fans to enjoy such success. But they have to remember where they came from as well, and they almost had to start again all those years back and build. And that's something that we're doing. And it didn't happen overnight. You need your bit of star quality, of course you do. But you need to build from the bottom up. There's no point, as we said, is keep papering over cracks. We could have easily, this year, we had the amount of calls we've had for loan players to keep bringing people in. And look, we could have easily done that and not played some of the youngsters, but then we wouldn't have had people like Stu, Witt, Jofra and these guys playing who could have easily been lost to the game and come nowhere near playing. So from that point of view, look, it's been a tough year so far. I understand from the supporters' point of view, there are some people that aren't happy, but I'll counter, we've also had a lot of people very happy to see a lot of Sussex lads coming and playing. And yes, they know results at the moment haven't been what we wanted, but I think there's enough people there behind us knowing that things will change.